News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. And there it is, your closing bell for this Friday on Wall Street, where hopes of a cooling tariff war drove stocks toward their second best week in 2025. We bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 gained 41 points. NASDAQ gained 99 points. The Dow gained 332 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.44%. The 2-year yield at 3.99%, just shy of 4%. This just crossing the Bloomberg terminal. The Supreme Court has just issued an emergency order blocking the Trump administration's deportations of Venezuelans. The justices faulted the government for not giving the men adequate notice about its deportation plans, and the court reinforced an interim order that temporarily bars President Trump from using the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport men being held in a Texas detention facility. Much more about this is still to come, and as soon as we get it, we're going to bring it right to you. President Trump's tax and spend bill has failed to pass the House committee. Hardline conservatives voted against it, demanding deeper cuts to Medicaid and other government programs. New York Republican Representative Nick LaLota says talks will continue with the political climate in mind.
If the bill falls apart in the next couple of days, weeks, or months, everybody's going to rush back to the negotiating table and say, how can we salvage this? But at the end of the day, you can't stick the blue states with the bill for everybody else's tax incentives like what happened in 2017. The negotiations will continue through both in person, over the phone, and on text this weekend, and we'll ultimately get there.
The future of the bill is less certain, but Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget President Maya McGinnis says this is not how this story ends.
Ultimately, and I've been saying this for a while, I think it could pass as a massive budget buster as it is currently, or it could end up being just temporary extensions and limping along to continue to figure it out. But those fiscal hawks are not comfortable with the borrowing that is in the bill, and I sympathize with them. It's huge.
You can hear our complete coverage when you download the Balance of Power podcast. U.S. consumer sentiment fell to the second lowest level on record. The preliminary May sentiment dropped to 50.8. That's down from 52.2 a month earlier. Survey Director Joanne Shu tells Bloomberg the pause on China tariffs helped a little, but it wasn't enough.
Clearly, that improvement was not enough to offset the really dour views that consumers had. And this reaction is pretty consistent with what we saw after April 9th.
April 9th is when the Trump administration put a pause on reciprocal tariffs. Sequoia Capital managing partner Roelof Botha's personal information, including his phone number and address, were stolen in that Coinbase hack. The attackers bribed customer service representatives in India to access client data, including names, dates of birth, and government ID numbers. They then demanded $20 million from Coinbase to cover it up, which the company refused to pay. Coinbase said it noticed unusual activity from some customer service representatives as far back as January. Still, Coinbase shares are up more than 30% over the past 5 seasons, driven by its inclusion in the S&P. The Federal Reserve plans to shrink its workforce by about 10% over the next several years, mainly through attrition. We get more on that with Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
That word from the Fed chair himself in a memo to staff seen by Bloomberg News. The reduction is said to include offering some employees a deferred resignation program. Eligible workers would be employees across the Federal Reserve System, including the Board of Governors in Washington and the Fed's 12 regional reserve banks. In the memo, Chair Powell said over the next couple of years, quote, our overall staffing level will decline by about 10% from today. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
Airbnb has relaunched its overhauled Experiences that lets users connect with services like personal chefs, hairstylists, trainers, tour operators, even celebrities. Brian Chesky is the CEO of Airbnb.
There's so much greater opportunity for people to monetize the biggest asset in their life. And it's not their home, it's their time. A huge percent of the jobs in the United States and around the world are becoming, essentially services jobs. And there is no Amazon for services.
Hear that entire interview when you download the Bloomberg Technology podcast. Boeing has reportedly reached a tentative non-prosecution agreement with the Justice Department in a fraud case stemming from 2 fatal 737 MAX plane crashes. Prosecutors told family members of crash victims that Boeing has no longer agreed to plead guilty. Bloomberg Intelligence senior aerospace, defense, and airlines analyst George Ferguson says had Boeing been convicted of a felony, it would have impacted its relationship with the government.
It's a good situation when Boeing can avoid a felony conviction, which I think ultimately was going to happen here. And so, there was a lot of questions, I guess, about whether or not a company that had been convicted of a felony could be a government contractor.
You can learn more when you download the Bloomberg Intelligence podcast. Round 2 of the PGA Championship is underway at Quail Hollow Golf and Country Club. At last check, Jonathan Vegas sits atop the leaderboard at 8 under par. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.